Hello everyone, how's it going, and welcome to today's Wild Rift video. In today's guide, we're going to be taking a look at the Sinister Blade Katarina. Katarina is a mid lane assassin that has the ability to jump in and out of fights with her Shumpo, making her extremely difficult to lock down. And with so many combos at her disposal, Katarina becomes one of the toughest mid lane champions to master. In this guide, I will run through everything you need to know to make your time that little bit easier. Taking a look at the build with Katarina. As an AP assassin, you want to build items that give Katarina a lot of ability power. So all of her abilities and all her combos can do a lot of damage, and you can carry team fights. Now, for the first item with your boots upgrade, you want to go for boots of mana. Now, even though you're not going to get any benefit at all from that mana regeneration, since Katarina is a champion that doesn't have any mana, so you can just use your abilities whenever you want, the early ability power, the early flat magic penetration as well from the boots, and the movement speed benefit her a lot, especially the movement speed, since Katarina is a champion that wants to roam around the map and try and get advantages on the other side of the map. So she can roam around, she can deal a whole bunch of damage to the junglers and potentially other lanes in the game. And since Katarina doesn't have mana, that means we can just go full on aggression with what items we are building. Infinity Orb as the first item, a lot of ability power, you have the percent magic penetration and also the flat magic penetration as well, a little bit of extra movement speed, and the passive means that our attacks and empowered abilities will be able to critically strike when enemies are below 35% health. So when you're jumping in with Katarina, using all of your combos, when enemies drop low on health, you'll be able to crit, dealing even more damage. Now, Katarina does need a defensive item, and Crown of Shattered Queen is probably the best defensive item for Katarina. And I say that even though Crown of Shattered Queen still gives you a whole bunch of great stats and a whole bunch of great damage stats as well. Ability power, percent magic penetration, and ability haste in there again. But a big thing is that safeguard passive. Since Katarina is always going to be jumping in, using her combos and trying to jump into melee range, that spell shield that you get from the safeguard passive will help you a lot against any crowd control that might be coming your way. And you can also take reduced damage as well for a period of time. Rabadon's Death Cap, no surprise here, a lot of ability power and increasing our overall ability power as well by 20 to 45% based on the level that we're on. Riftmaker, allowing you to deal true damage, but also that Omnivamp. So when Katarina is especially using her ultimate, she'll be able to heal every single time that she deals damage. It's great, and the true damage means that you are able to ignore any magic resist that the enemies might buy. Also a little bit of maximum health in there as well. Also helps out Katarina quite a bit. And Liandry's Torment as the final item. Since we're in the tank meta, since tanks are very strong at the moment, Liandry's Torment becomes even more valuable because of the Torment passive, allowing us to do more damage based on the enemy's maximum health. But you do have another situational item here as well that you can go for, Trident. If you're against a lot of shielding on the enemy team, then you can go for Trident as well, another very good item. Now, the big item that is not on this list is Morellonomicon, and that's because Katarina's ultimate applies grievous wounds, so you don't actually need to buy Morellonomicon or any anti-heal item at all in your build, and this just opens up so many more options to so many better items for Katarina. As to the runes, First Strike is the most balls deep, I guess you could say, rune that you can go for. It's very easy to proc with Katarina at times because you can use your first ability at range to proc First Strike and then jump in with your combo to be able to deal true damage. However, if you do get poked beforehand, and if you're not the first person that deals damage, then you're not going to be able to get the extra true damage and the extra little bit of gold. So it's a bit of a high risk, high reward rune that you can go for. If you don't feel like First Strike is great, then you can go for Electrocute as well, which is a lot easier to proc during the game. As for the other runes, the secondary runes, we're going for the Domination Tree, especially with sudden impact, Shunpo, which gets reduced on cooldown when we pick up our daggers. That being able to jump into enemy champions allows us to get more magic penetration, so we can deal more damage. And as I mentioned, this can get reset as well when we're picking up daggers, so that means we can jump around the fight a lot easier. Mark of the Week, allowing us to deal more damage if we mark an enemy champion. Eyeball Collector as well, allowing us to get more ability power when we get takedowns, so any kills and assists. With the secondary rune, being bone plating, just in case we get caught. We can take reduced damage as well from bone plating, and also this adds on top of Crown of the Shattered Queen. With the summoner spells being flash and ignite, we want to play aggressive with Katarina. We want to try and jump in and deal the most amount of damage as possible, so ignite will help us with that. But that's everything for the build for Katarina. Let's head on to the abilities. First up, let's take a look at Katarina's passive, which is Veracity. This passive allows Katarina to completely pop off and use her abilities over and over and over again. Whenever an enemy champion dies, the Katarina's damage in the last 3 seconds, her remaining ability cooldowns are reduced by 15 seconds. Now, when you look at all the abilities and all the cooldowns, 15 seconds is a long time. For most, if not all of these abilities, this will mean that these abilities will come back up and available. The only one that won't be back up and available straight away will be her ultimate. But every other ability, when you get a takedown on an enemy champion, you'll be able to use the abilities again. This is really good for things like Shumpo, that allows you to jump in and then jump back out of the fight because of the refresh of the cooldown, and so many other opportunities. And also, Katarina slashes at all nearby enemies whenever she picks up a dagger, dealing magic damage. Now, there are plenty of ways in which Katarina can drop daggers on the floor. She can either use her first ability to drop a dagger on the floor. You can see that dagger there is that little dagger which is just dropped behind the target dummy there. And when you pick up the dagger, you'll be able to see that Katarina slashes around and deals a whole bunch of damage. She can also drop a dagger using her second ability. This is also another way to drop the dagger, and then that can also be picked up and you can slash around and do a whole bunch of damage. These are the 2 main abilities that are going to allow you to drop a bunch of daggers throughout the game. And one big thing as well is that Katarina can use her third ability, her Shumpo, towards these daggers. So you can jump to the daggers and you can use this straight away on top of the daggers, and that means that you'll be able to most of the time refresh the cooldown of your third ability. So you just use your second ability into your third ability, and as you can see, the third ability just goes on a 1 second cooldown, so you can use that again to jump in again and deal a whole bunch of damage. But jumping onto these daggers and using these daggers to your advantage will allow Katarina to deal extra damage when using her combos. Katarina's first ability is Bouncing Blaze. Katarina throws a dagger dealing magic damage to the target and 2 nearby enemies, and then the dagger then ricochets to the ground behind the first initial point. The dagger's time in the air is the same regardless of how many times it bounces. So even if the dagger bounces once, the dagger will then drop to time the same time that it would do to bounce on 3 enemy champions. Now, the big point with Bouncing Blade is that little second part, which mentions that the dagger will drop behind the first initial contact. So if you take this situation here, say for example, like this target dummy here is a minion, and this is a minion here, and then maybe this is an enemy champion. The big thing is that you don't actually want to use your first ability on a champion most of the time. So say for example, I use the dagger on this champion over here. Say this is a champion. I use the dagger here. It could bounce around a whole bunch of times. Like if I put another target dummy here, like say this is another minion, I can use my first ability on an enemy champion here. It can then bounce around and deal a bunch of damage, but the problem is that the dagger is then going to drop behind the champion. So if the champion dashes away or even just walks away from you, then it's going to be really, really difficult for Katarina to jump to that dagger with her Shumpo. So the best way to use her first ability is by using it on minions first. You use it on the minions, you try and bounce it towards the enemy champion, and then the dagger drops closer towards you. So then you can use her third ability to jump in and proc the dagger. So as I mentioned, if this is a minion, this target dummy right here, this minion, I can use it on the minion. It can then bounce to 2 targets behind, and then the dagger is just going to drop in front of that first minion. It gets really, really important when the minions are really, really close to you, like this as well. So I can use my first ability and it can bounce a few times if I don't fail it. It can bounce a few times on top of other target dummies if I put these all in a line. I'll be able to use my first ability here. It will bounce through 3 champions, but as you can see, it doesn't matter where the third target is. it will always land in front of the first champion. So it makes it a lot easier for me to jump in with my third ability and then use my basic combo. But if I use it behind, as I mentioned, like if I use it all the way back here, and if I use my first ability on an enemy champion, it's going to be really difficult for me to play this aggressive and jump this far forward, especially during the early game. So make sure you use your first ability on a minion and try and bounce that to an enemy champion. Preparation is Katarina's second ability, which is really self-explanatory. Just throw a dagger in the air and haste Katarina by 60%. Now, haste is a really weird word. I don't know why they just don't say Katarina gains movement speed, but basically Katarina gains movement speed when using her second ability. So all it is that she just drops a dagger on the ground and she gains a little bit of movement speed for a short amount of time. Now this movement speed can be used to great effect whether you're chasing an enemy champion or if you're just trying to run away. I don't think it's a bad idea to just use the second ability to try and chase enemy champions, or even just try and get into a situation where you're trying to run away from an enemy champion, because what you can do is you can use your second ability as kind of a bait. So say for example, I'm running away from enemy champion. If I use my second ability here, I can use it as a bait and then jump back in with my third ability. So I'm getting the extra movement speed to escape so the enemy champion doesn't come close enough, but then I can jump back in and deal a bunch of damage straight away. And not only this, it can also reset your cooldown of your third ability. So if I jump in with my third ability, it's on a 6-second cooldown. I use my second ability and there we go. It resets my cooldown for my Shunpo. So say for example, if I was to jump in first, I mean, we can do this in many different ways. We can use the second ability and then jump in with our first ability, drop the dagger there and then jump backwards as well. So there's many different ways in which you can use your second ability aggressively to try and deal an extra bit of damage, but make sure you also bear in mind that you can use this defensively as well, and trying to use it defensively. If you jump in, use all your abilities, then you run back, you'll be able to pick up this dagger and deal more damage to enemy champions around you. So a very simple ability, but with plenty of different benefits that will help Katarina. Katarina's third ability, and probably her most important ability, is Shunpo. This is her ability that allows her to jump into fights, jump out of fights, and makes her extremely difficult to lock down. Katarina blinks to a location near a dagger or unit, dealing magic damage to the nearest enemy. Picking up a dagger greatly reduces the cooldown of Shunpo, which I've already mentioned to you. So picking up a dagger from either your first ability or your second ability will greatly reduce the cooldown of Shunpo. Now, in the early game, this is not going to reset Shunpo's cooldown completely. You have to get a few levels in your third ability first before it actually gets reset. You can see by the cooldown in the early game it's at 10 seconds, but in the late game it goes down to 6 seconds. So when you level up your third ability, you'll be able to jump in with a dagger, reset the cooldown, and then jump back out again. But there's a few things with Shunpo that you might not know about. With Shunpo, you can actually use this on minions, monsters in the jungle, and also plants as well. So if I'm running away from an enemy champion over here, I could use my third ability on this red plant thing. I forgot what it's called for a second. Blasting Cone, that's the one, and that could use that to escape. I can also use this on jungle monsters as well if I want to just deal, jump away again to safety, or even if I want to jump forward. You can also use this on honey fruit. Again, another great way to escape. If you're really low on health and if you're running back towards your tower, use your third ability on the honey fruit. You can also do this on enemy champions and also allied champions. So there are many different ways in which you can use Katarina's third ability to either play aggressively or escape as well. And again, the big thing is that using your third ability and trying to pick up as many daggers as possible. If you use your first ability and if you jump and then get the dagger, you can then use your second ability again to drop another dagger, and you can able to reset your cooldown of your third ability multiple times. I can use my first ability into third ability, second ability, third ability again. So I just use my third ability 3 times in a space of like 2 seconds. You can see that you can use this multiple times to deal that extra little bit of damage. And one final tip I have for you for the third ability is you can actually use this ability to jump over walls. If you use your second ability near a wall, and if you're able to aim your third ability over the wall, you can use this to jump over walls, just like that. And that is, again, a great way for you to be able to escape. Again, if you're running away here from an enemy champion, you can quickly use your second ability here, get a bit of movement speed, and then use that again to jump over the wall and get to safety. So again, plenty of different ways that you can use Katarina's third ability, and maybe you learned a thing or two with what you can use your third ability on, but it's all important to pick up your daggers so you reset the cooldown of your third ability. And last but by no means least, we have Katarina's ultimate, which is Death Lotus. Katarina rapidly throws blades at the 3 nearest enemy champions, dealing magic damage and applying grievous wounds, which means we don't need to build any items that apply grievous wounds, since our ultimate is going to be able to deal grievous wounds to enemy champions. And the big thing in Wild Rift is that Katarina can move and throw blades for up to 2.6 seconds. So you can actually move around when using Katarina's ultimate. And this is a huge change for Katarina coming from PC League of Legends to Wild Rift, is that you'll be able to move when using your ultimate. Now, one of the most basic combos that I use with her ultimate is when I'm using the ultimate, I can use my first ability, use my ultimate, and then I'll be able to move closer towards that dagger. And by the time the ultimate ends, I can pick up that dagger and then potentially use other abilities again, like my third ability that can reset. So what you can do is that you can use, I accidentally reset my level instead of resetting the cooldown. But if I put it on 0-second cooldowns for a second, if I show you what I can actually do with this, with being able to move, I use my first ability, jump in with my third ability, use my second ability, and then get that extra movement speed on my ultimate. You can see you can move around, you can deal a bunch of damage, and you can also sometimes dodge skill shots as well, which is, again, really awesome. Use your ultimate, use your second ability again, jump away. It's great that you're able to move with her ultimate. So that means you can open up so much more plays that you might not be able to do before. Again, you can use your second ability, get an extra bit of movement speed, and then use your ultimate to bait them, pick up the dagger again to do the extra little bit of damage. So that's the big thing, is just trying to pick up as many daggers as possible when using your ultimate as well, because normally your ultimate is not going to deal that much damage. Your big thing is coming from your passive and picking up daggers. That extra little bit of damage that you get from them will be able to get the takedown and then reset the cooldown of all of your abilities. Now, for combos with Katarina, as I've already mentioned, there are plenty of different combos for Katarina. Whether you want to try and jump in or try and jump away, there are loads of different combos that you can use. I'm going to show you the most basic combo that you're going to see me using throughout most of the game. And this is by far the best combo that you want to do with Katarina to get a really quick trade on an enemy champion. So what I do is I first start off with my first ability. This allows me to get easy access to jump into the dagger with my Shumpo. Then I use my second ability to deal the extra AoE damage around me, and then I can use my third ability to jump away. So I can use an ally dummy here, just to say that this is the champion here. I can use ally dummy here. Just in case this is my minion, for example, and then this is the enemy minions with the enemy champion just behind it. So what I can do is I can use my first ability, jump in with my third ability, then use my second ability straight away, do a quick little burst damage, and then jump away with my third ability. Again, you can use this as well on ally minions, so you can easily jump in, get a quick trade off with your first strike or even your electrocute, and then jump away back to safety. And this can also be paired with your ultimate as well, so you can do first ability into third ability into your second ability, and then use your ultimate. Do first, third, second, and then ultimate, and you can see how much burst damage you can do in a short amount of time. 5,800 damage. You can see, well, it goes up to 6,100 because I have Leandries, but 5,800 damage just with that simple combo of your first ability, your third ability, second ability, and then with your ultimate afterwards. And then if you're able to get a takedown, then you can just jump in and use your ultimate again, jump in and use your abilities again. But as I mentioned, there are so many combos to go through. It's very difficult to go through every single combo. So the best advice that I would give in terms of combos is come into a practice tool like this. practice your abilities, practice your combos, and see what feels comfortable for you. As I mentioned, with that basic combo that I've just showed, that's what I feel comfortable most on with Katarina. But some people, what they will do is they'll use their first ability to jump in, use their second ability behind them, jump in with their third ability, and then jump away with the dagger. So then they get the reset of the dagger to potentially jump back in again. So there's plenty of ways. I can jump in with my first ability, jump in, get the extra movement speed from the dagger, and then jump away again and not use my third ability. And instead, I can use my third ability reset behind my minions. So again, plenty of different combos that you can use. The most basic combo, though, is, as I mentioned, your first ability into your third ability, and then use your second ability to deal the extra damage with potentially your ultimate on top when it is available. With the leveling order for Katarina, at level 1, you always want to go for your first ability. This could be used to poke down enemy champions in the early game, but also to last hit minions. Since Katarina is a champion that does struggle a little bit during the early game, since she doesn't have all of her abilities available and she doesn't have the early game power, your first ability is mainly used at level 1 to last hit minions, get as much gold as possible, and just play safe. Then we can get our second ability, or our third ability, sorry, at level 2. This allows us to do our quick combo of using our first ability into our third ability to jump into the dagger and deal the extra burst damage. But again, just be careful during the early game, because as you can see at level 2, if I use my first ability into my third ability, it's still going to be on a 2-second cooldown, or maybe even longer than that, because I do have items that give me ability haste. So you do have to be very careful when using this combo. But again, the third ability is the best take at level 2, because you can also use it to get away to safety. And then when you want to get your second ability, to make sure you have all your abilities available to do them quick combos in and out of the laning phase. The first ability that you want to max is your first ability. This is mainly Katarina's ability that does the most damage and has the most playmaking potential in the early game, or set up the biggest gameplay potential in the early game. So getting as much damage as possible with your first ability in the early games, either last hit minions or use this to try and poke down enemy champions. And then you can drop the dagger, and then that will set up the huge playmaking potential for Katarina. Then at level 3, you want to go for your third ability, which might actually surprise some people, since your second ability is going to do more damage than your third ability. But as I mentioned, the cooldown on your third ability is going to be incredibly important when it gets to team fights. Being able to pick up the dagger and just greatly reduce the cooldown of your third ability, which in the mid and late game, you're going to be able to reduce it all the way down to 0 seconds. So you can basically use it again. First ability into third ability, you can see all it takes is 0.5 seconds, and then the third ability is back up again. This is so important for Katarina to jump into fights, do a quick amount of burst damage, or potentially try and kill an enemy champion, and then jump away to safety, since we have Shampoo up and available. That's why we go for our third ability max second, and then obviously going for our second ability as our third max as well, making sure we level up our ultimate every single time. Now I'm going to show you all a gameplay. Now I'm going to show you all a gameplay with Katarina, where we're going to be taking a look at every single stage of the game, whether it's the early game, the mid game. I'm going to show you what decisions I make during the game and how you can better perform with Katarina. So I'll see you all in just a second. All right, on to the gameplay we go with Katarina. We're going to be playing Katarina, and I'm going to be telling you all about all stages of the game with Katarina, you know, talking about the champion, how she works, how she could be strong in games, and also how she can also be weak in games. Now, as I mentioned already, Katarina is one of the weakest champions in the early game. You can't really get much benefit at all in the early game with Katarina. Most of the time, all you're going to be doing is using your first ability to trade early on. As you can see there, I took a really bad trade against the Akali. Most of the time, all you're going to be doing during the early lane phase is waiting until a minion's low like this and just using your first ability. But the great thing about your first ability is that, as I mentioned already, it can bounce off of minions and also onto champions. So you can use the minions to your advantage to try and bounce the daggers onto champions as well. But as you can see here, I have to play quite passive during this early game because I'm against Electrocute Akali, which is very difficult to play against. I think if I was against like Fleet Footwork Akali or maybe even Conqueror Akali, I can probably go for like quick trades if I really want to. But every single time I walk up and I try and walk on the daggers, it's going to be way too difficult for me. So all I have to do here is just play passive. This is all you're basically going to be doing this whole time. Sometimes you can jump in like I just did there and get a few extra minions, but as you can see, every single time I try and jump in, I'm always going to lose a trade, especially because I'm only level 2 as well. So I need to try and get level 3 and beyond that. There is a bit of an invade happening in the jungle as well. And yeah, the problem is with like invading and with jungle camps in general, I'm not going to be able to do much to defend because as you can see, I've got minions underneath the tower. I don't want to do too much to be able to do anything, but yeah, there's not much I can do there, unfortunately. I mean, this is a case as a jungler that you need to have a look at your lanes and realize, hey, my Yasuo is pushed in. You can see in the top lane at the moment, Darius has pushed Yasuo underneath the tower. Akali has advantage over me as well, so Akali pushed me under tower. And as a jungler, you can't expect your laners to just leave the lane and help you in the jungle. That's not quite how it works. You know, if I leave the lane there and try and help the Gwen, I probably don't even get any kills for it either. Like the best case scenario, I try and help her live. But most of the time, all that's going to happen is I'm just going to lose farm underneath my tower. That's all it's going to be. I'm going to lose farm underneath my tower. I'm going to roam, get absolutely nothing for it, and then I'm just going to be so far behind. So it's a lot better for me to just stay in the mid lane, take my farm, and just play for the mid and the late game, which is kind of what our comp does. You know, Gwen scales incredibly well. I scale pretty well. Yasuo also scales pretty well. In bot lane, we also have Kai'Sa, which also scales pretty well. But as you can see, this early game is not going too great, unfortunately, at the moment. Like I said, I can't really do anything at the moment to roam around or really do anything. You can see all I'm doing here is just using my daggers to my advantage to try and farm as many minions as possible. And to be honest, I'm doing incredibly well at the moment to be able to farm all these minions. And Carly just walk up a little bit too far and take a tower shot there. So I was actually able to get her flash in the end. You can see I just jumped in and used my ultimate, just do a little bit of extra damage. And this gives me time now to push the lane in and try and, you know, take as many minions as possible and then go back to base and try and reset. This gives me that very rare opportunity to do this. And you can see here that I'm just going to go, you know, back to base now. So as you can see, early game is kind of boring with Katarina. You don't really do too much, but like I said, really when the mid and late game comes in that we get to actually do stuff. So we do buy the mana boots, which we don't get any benefit with the mana, but that's completely fine. We will then go into Prophet's Pendant, which is going to give us a little bit of ability power. But like, every single time that I try and jump in, Akali's just going to use her third ability on me and just burst me with Electrocute. This matchup is extremely difficult for Katarina because she wants to be in melee range and she wants to do a lot. And to be honest, Katarina doesn't really have a lot of great lanes, to be honest with you, because just how the champion works in general. As you can see, all I'm doing is just farming and farming. That's all I'm doing at the moment. Farming up, trying to get as many minions as possible. And to be honest, if you look at the gold, I'm probably not even doing that bad either. I think I'm actually doing pretty okay in terms of gold. Lucian being ahead though by this much is not a great thing. I'll be totally honest, that is not a great thing to be able to do this. But you can see that I'm kind of using my basic combo every single time. You know, using my first ability and then jumping onto the daggers with my third ability. And then using my second ability to do a little bit of extra damage. That's one way that you can definitely go about it. But yeah, at the moment, I don't think I'm really doing too bad. You know, I didn't roam to help my jungler, unfortunately. I wasn't able to help my jungler at all. But other than that, we've played the laning phase pretty well. We've done pretty well in terms of farm and everything as well. I'm gonna go back to lane here and farm a few more minions, a few more extra little bits of gold. I can try and cancel. Okay, I do cancel Akali's back. Okay, we do pretty well here. Good thing is the jungle is going towards Rift Herald, which Rift Herald is going to give the whole team a lot of extra gold, which I think is going to be really nice overall. Which is great. Darius is walking up. Not too sure why the Darius is walking up. The Darius can't really do anything. They do take the dragon, but it doesn't really mean too much. I'm just going to jump straight onto Darius here straight away to apply the grievous wounds. Fortunately, I don't get the reset with my third ability, so I wasn't able to pick up any daggers. And yeah, unfortunately, they were kind of too low, kind of too high on health. Yeah, I'm just going to use the Carly here to just escape. And yeah, it seems like the rest of my team is pretty much dead, unfortunately. I thought we could maybe jump jump onto the Darius here and try and get something, but Unfortunately, we didn't get anything at all. Gwen even used the tower top lane as well, the herald, sorry, top lane, and didn't even take the first tower of the game, and also dies there. So yeah, it's not looking too great, which is I guess kind of expected with the composition that we've gone for. You know, Gwen is scaling, Yasuo is scaling, Katarina is scaling, so you kind of expect to lose this early game. Kai'Sa's also scaling. We're against the Kali, especially with Electrocute, is a lot stronger during the early game. Darius early game is a lot stronger. Rammus, you could say, is probably stronger than Gwen in the early stages. And obviously, Lucian beats Kaisa early game. So we know that we're going to be at a deficit, but as long as we keep our head and we, you know, if we're able to perform well, then that's completely fine. You can see here, I'm worried to jump in and use my third. Look at that. Like, that's just Electrocute. That's just one little burst from Akali with Electrocute. That is the scary thing about Akali. Is that you might think that Akali doesn't really do too much damage, but with Electrocute, that really increases her burst damage by quite a bit. Gwen gets a kill here, though, which is really, really nice. And I'm going to get an assist here, hopefully. Oh, no, it doesn't look like I'm going to get an assist. I'm going to try and get an assist. Ignite plus ulti. Should be able to get a kill or an assist here. Yeah, really nice. I get the kill as well. So that's really, really good. They played a little bit too aggressive, the enemy team. They just ran into our jungle for some reason. So really, really good for us to get that extra kill there. Which is going to give us a little bit more gold. And use this to jump back as well. But you see how I'm using my allies to my advantage with my third ability as well. You know, I use the Alistar flashing over the wall. And I dash to the Alistar using my third ability. Then I use my second ability for the movement speed, and then I use my ultimate. Again, the ultimate is going to give me grievous wounds and also a lot of damage. Actually really surprised that Akali did buy Zhonya's this early. I don't know if I agree with it, to be honest. I think buying thingy this early, what's the word called, buying Zhonya's this early is really, really bad in my opinion. Really good combo here by the Alistar, and we get a nice cheeky double kill here. But you see how here, I just want to actually rewind here to kind of show you the combo, because I was talking about the Gwen. So I got a little bit caught here, unfortunately, by the Morgana. I did lose health. Alistar did a really, really good knockup. What I did, I used my third ability here to jump onto the minions, and then I used my second ability to reset my third ability. You see the third ability is going to be reset here, which allows me to use my first ability, jump back in again, and get the double kill. So I used the third ability to close the gap because I knew that Alistar was probably going to engage at that point. Use my second ability to reset my cooldown of my third ability because I pick up the daggers. It allows me to use my first ability and then my third ability again to jump in and then use my ultimate. So I'm using my ultimate and also picking up the daggers at the same time. So overall, really, really good. I did have to use my flash away here. To be honest, I probably could have escaped if I just used my third ability, but it should be fine. I just used my third ability and I probably wouldn't have been able to escape. But another kill here, and we're starting to rack up a few kills here, which is very scary for the enemy team when a Katarina gets this many kills. But we're able to get quite a few kills here, which is really, really nice. Alistar's going to look to try and engage again here onto the Lucian, and yeah, as you can see, it's very, very difficult here for Lucian. I use the daggers to my advantage again to jump in and out of fights to try and be as annoying as possible. You can see here how I'm waiting for the Alistar stun. Look at that. Wait for Alistar stun. Wait for knock up. Looks like I'm going to die here. Oh, the Alistar heal. Oh my god. I actually lived through the Alistar heal. I completely forgot about that. I lived through the Alistar heal somehow. Yeah, that's so insane for me. You see how I'm just patient there. I was patient. I was waiting for the Alistar to stun the enemy champions with his third ability, and as soon as Alistar went for the stun, I jumped in and I took my advantage. So really, really nice there. And just showing how you need to be patient with Katarina. You know, with Katarina, you don't want to be the first one to engage. You always want to be there for cleanup. You are an assassin after all, so you are going to be very squishy. Great thing is now that I've crowned a Shattered Queen, so if any sort of crowd control comes my way, especially Morgana Q, which is really, really annoying to deal with, I can block it now with Crown the Shattered Queen. So really, really helps us a lot in this scenario. Looks like my team are going towards Dragon at the moment, but I'm not too sure if that's the best idea. Trying my best to get there as quick as possible. I can use my combo here, and the great thing is that I'm not going to get taunted. That's the great thing about it. I'm not going to get taunted here because I'm able to use... I do die there. I was able to jump in for free because I have crowned the Shattered Queen. So I jump in, Ramos tries to taunt me, and he can't taunt me because I have Crown of Shatter Queen shield. Unfortunately, I didn't beat the Katarina. Sorry, not the Katarina, the Akali in the end. I didn't kill the Akali. Maybe I could have jumped away instead of trying to fight her. I could have jumped onto the Alistar and just escaped instead. But still, overall, you know, really, really good trade for us. Again, we was a little bit late to the fight because we were clearing that top lane wave. And we were making sure that Darius couldn't get the top lane tower. But you see here how I know that my team is moving mid lane. This is one thing that I always tell people in every scenario in the game. See, in this scenario, if you look at the minimap, I know that Kai'Sa's mid lane. I know that Yasuo is top lane. So the best scenario for me right now is to go top lane. You know, in this scenario, a lot of people will just go mid lane because they think to themselves, like, oh, I'm a mid lane champion, I need to go mid lane. But you don't even need to go mid lane the whole time. If the rest of your team is already mid lane, what's the point of you going mid lane as well? You might as well go top lane, clear the wave, and get money from the towers. You can see here that Akali is, yeah, unfortunately, oh my god. Oh, it's so clean. Oh, the Akali's so mad. Ankles broken from the Akali. Oh my god, I remember this play. Holy moly, the Akali's ankles got broken. I used my second ability to reset my shampoo and I just timed it so perfect in the end. Yeah, big thing is just making sure every single time that you go out of base, don't just default walk to your lane every single time. Look at the mini map and look where is the best place for you to get the most amount of gold. Do you need to clear top wave? Do you need to clear bot wave? What objectives are coming up? You know, do I need to go top side for the Rift Herald? Do I need to go towards the dragon, and do I need to go bot side? You know, all these things to take into consideration when you're playing any champion. You know, it's not just Katarina, it's any champion at all. And now at this point of the game, I'm incredibly strong. 8-1-0. Obviously the only death I had was at that dragon. I have 3 items now, and this is where Katarina gets very, very scary indeed. You can see my gold at the bottom as well. 661 gold overall from first strike is a lot of gold. You know, a lot of gold. Akali here goes absolutely crazy. I try my best to jump onto the Akali. It's a little bit difficult. I'm going to time my ultimate here to try and do enough damage, but yeah, I'm not going to be able to in the end. I do get taunted there because my Crown of Shatter Queen did get popped. That's okay because we're still able to jump away in the end. Now with him jumping in, with Alistar jumping in, Alistar's really good setup for me, actually, thinking about it. You know, think about this. Alistar is great setup for Katarina. And now you can see I'm just running all over them. Like, this is the point of the game where Katarina can just 1v9 games. You know, if you can find enemies really, really low on health, and if you can get the resets, you can see every single time that I'm getting a takedown, I'm getting the resets on my abilities. So I can just keep using my abilities over and over and over again. And it's just incredibly powerful how much damage you can do. You can see here that I know my team's already going to take the objective. So all I'm doing here is just being a distraction. There you go. That's all you need to do there. It's like, I know my team's taking Baron. If I can distract the enemy team and just go over the wall and do a little bit of damage, I know that I have my shampoo to get away to safety. So again, a really, really good play overall to secure Baron, take that, and get away to safety. I do go stasis this game, but I think for boots upgrade, there are 2 options. You can either go for stasis or you can go for Quicksilver. There are 2 options. It kind of really depends. I think this game I could actually go Quicksilver, because sometimes your Crown of Shattered Queen shield is going to proc, and when you're jumping in, you do need to use the QSS to stop any CC from, you know, coming your way. So you can just keep using your ultimate and it's not going to get stopped, because any sort of crowd control, when Katarina uses her ultimate, it gets stopped. So you do have to be extremely careful. I'm going to try and trap them here in the bush. I think it's going to be a really, really good trap. Akali's there as well. You can see I'm just going to jump in straight away, use my ultimate, use all my abilities. I get the takedown, so I get all my abilities back up. And again, really, really good setup from my Alistar. Really insane play. We can go towards the dragon now as well. And yeah, at this point, this game is over. But you can see how even though the early game did seem rough, you know, with Katarina, she is a champion that is a late game champion. She is a champion that can carry later on. If you can get a few kills, then she can perform incredibly well. So we're going towards, I think, Leandries now, or is it Riftmaker? Can't remember what item I go towards here, but I normally recommend Riftmaker just because the true damage and the extra healing is really, really nice. You can also go for Leandries if you get a few tanks, which I kind of am this game. Lucian is dead. Nope. Ignite. Oh, okay, Lucian is dead. And hey, all my abilities come back up again. It's crazy. I love Katarina just because of her playstyle, because the passive, you getting your abilities off cooldown, is just so fun. Like, I absolutely love it. See here, Darius is dead as well. And yeah, this game is pretty much over. Not really much more to say. This game, just, you know, really unfortunate early game that the whole of the enemy team pretty much got a bunch of kills, but we got a few picks which were really good. You know, the enemy team played a little bit over aggressive. Also, we had some really good picks in our comp. Like I said, Alistar's a great setup for Katarina, because as soon as Alistar uses his combo, it's a great opportunity for Katarina to just jump in and do as much damage as possible, because you know that they're going to be CC'd for at least, you know, a second or two, and that's all the Katarina needs. All the Katarina needs is just a second or two, and as soon as you get that little bit of an advantage, then hey, you're all good. Use Zhonya's here as soon as I get the kill, and boom, jump away to safety. Should be the end of the game here. I think my team are just going to auto attack the Nexus here. I can also attack the Nexus as well, but I'm also trying to get a few kills. I'm trying to get a few style points as well. Unfortunately not. Oh, maybe the game's not going to end yet. I can jump back in, maybe? No. I was thinking of jumping back in here, I think. Maybe still. I still try and look to jump back in. Oh, Darius misses hook. Get the reset again. Akali's probably going to jump in here and try and kill me. Use the jump to get away to safety. Oh, I was close. I was close. I probably could have played that better. I tried to use the W movement speed as well. I probably could have played that better. I'm trying to think what I could have done. What I could have done differently. Honestly, I probably could have just jumped on my dagger. Or actually, you know what the best thing probably to do there is to, when Akali has the trap on you, or when Akali uses her third ability on you, you can probably use W, but don't step on the dagger, and just wait until Akali jumps to you and then jump on the dagger to do that incredible amount of burst damage with your passive. That's probably the best way to go about it. I just didn't use any of my abilities at all. I tried to use my W for the movement speed instead. We're going to go towards the Elder Drake now. The Nexus nearly there. Oh, the Nexus did die in the end. The Nexus died to the minions in the end. That is GG's. Yeah, really good performance on Katarina. You can see how I'm just using my basic combos most of the time. I'm just using my first ability onto my third ability to jump on the daggers, and then also my second ability as well. So overall, really good game. 13, 2, and 4 on Katarina. So very good performance. 29,000 damage in the end. Again, the early game didn't go too well, but that was okay. You know, as long as the rest of the game goes well, that's completely fine. You know, you could be behind in the early game, that's not a problem, but it's just how you play the rest of the game is going to be the most important thing. But hopefully you enjoyed this guide anyway. Hopefully you learned a thing or two about Katarina. As always, if you like the content, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, have a good rest of the day. I'll see you in the next Wilder video. Peace.